Yo, comrades, what's up? We're back. We're here for Nikke got us victory in chapter 32. So we pick up, and now that Grave can speak, it's time for us to discuss Anichiro and the whole thing. She insists the thing inside, it's a girl. They're like cyborgs. The girl inside the coffin is not Anichiro. Also, she doesn't trust us because we robbed the dead. And then, what does that mean? She's talking about Rappy and Red Hood. So Rappy approaches, she changes her hair back and forth and tells her that she didn't rob anybody, that she inherited the Red Hood stuff. She talks about having a dream to be like Red Hood, but that she had given up. And that she respects Grave for never giving up on her dream. And then we pull out our phone and we got that video, which is like the last will and testament of Red Hood that she made all the way back in 26? Something like that. We show it to Grave and she's like, oh wow, so like, yes, what you're saying is the truth. You don't rob the dead. And so at that point she wants to help. She does want our help with her dream, and her dream is to see Cinderella back. So we team up, and Cinderella is the girl who's in the coffin. So the first thing we need to do is get Cinderella's weapon called Glass Slipper, which is so good. These guys who fucking make this game, man. So everything is so good. Like, I love all the references. God, I love this game. Anyway, so Glass Slipper is being held by Behemoth. Behemoth. Absolute talks about how there's a change in mission, because before we were going to like try to destroy the crystal area, but now we want to help Grave get Cinderella back and get Glass Slipper and all that stuff. And so then they have a little chit chat among themselves about how they trust us and we're the commander, and if that's what we want to do, we should follow orders and stuff. They also talk about Modernia and how we were able to change Modernia from Modernia back to Marion after she got corrupted. So maybe we can, we're magic because of our blood or something, but we should. So maybe we can help with turning Anichiro back to Cinderella. So they decide that they're going to believe us and they're going to trust us. Anise then gives Yunhua a hard time for having the hots for us, and she's like, "You better get in line. There's a stiff competition going on." And then everyone's like, "Yeah, that's true." And then we respond. We're just standing there. At least these babe-alicious like cyborgs are like talking about how they want to bang us, and we're just like, anyway, moving on. Oh man. So we check in with Rappy at that point. She's thinking about Behemoth and her fight and how she wants to fight her again, and this time she wants to win. She's very determined. We learn about the Lost Sector and how it's being like the Lost Sector is the thing that we're creating with the A pillars and the Harmony Cube. Lost Sectors are arcs. I kind of mentioned this before, but when we talk about Lost Sectors, they're like areas that like Harmony Cubes are set up and there was going to be potential arcs built there, but it just didn't pan out. So now they're like Lost Sectors because they still exist as like these funny like semi arcs, but there's nothing else going on there. And how the crystals are starting to push back against the Lost Sector, so there's like some battling going on. So there must be part of like Behemoth controlling them and fighting with the pillars and the Harmony Cube. And so we discussed with Mana and Shifty as well that we're like, we probably can't use the A pillars anymore to do anything, so we're gonna have to focus on getting Cinderella's weapons back. And then if we run into Behemoth, we're gonna have to like deal with it when we get there. We learn about what's going on with Grave and Cinderella a bit. We learn that Cinderella was corrupted into a heretic, but that Vapis cured her. And then something else happened that we find out about next week when I go through Old Tales. And then she got injured. Glass Slippers has a revitalization code embedded into it. So if we can get that, we can like hook it up with Cinderella and use the reactivation code to like restart her system. Grave has been, but before we can do that, she has to be like fully healed up. And so Grave's been spending the last like, I don't know, so many years, decades probably, repairing Cinderella with scavenged parts and making sure she's still beautiful and all that stuff. And she had to fend off heretics while doing that. First it was Nihilister, because Nihilister got a hold of Cinderella for a while, and then now with the Four Beasts want her. And she has no idea what these heretics want her, like what the Four Beasts want to do with her or anything. And we find out about that much later, I think in chapter 40. And then what about all these crystals? And she was embedded in them, and it's like, what? How? And it's because she has some sort of special film or goo over her and over the glass slippers that the crystals can't like penetrate through, or they can't sense the electricity, so they just leave her alone or something. Anyway, whatever it is, whatever's over her skin, the crystals don't bother her, don't do anything, so they can't affect her, which makes the crystal region actually the safest place for her because it destroys the raptures and is also a problem for some of the heretics. Obviously not the 4 beasts, but still, she can like hide out there and like it's harder to track her down. And at this point, Cinderella's like pretty much like all healed up, and so we need to grab glass slippers so we can activate her. Grave and Yunhua then get into it about whether they need to prepare or just like run in shonen anime protag style with like good vibes and win the day. Yunhua finally goes off to talk to Grave about tactics and lecture her. While this is going on, Vessi asks Rappy again if she's going to apologize to Yunhua. She then talks about how they have they've been like in a rut in their relationship, and it's not just their like combat prowess or like their development or anything, but it's also their friendship, like Absolute's friendship, like Vesti, Emma, and Yunhua. And so and part of that is like Yunhua seems to be stuck, and if Rappy could just please like apologize, that would help move things forward. So he then talks about, let's see, yep, Yunhua seems to have been frozen in time since Rappy left, and that Vesti really wants things to change, so she really needs her help. And Rappy promises Vesti that she will apologize. And at that point, Yunhua and Grave return. It looks like Grave has learned absolutely nothing, but that's okay. We're just going to proceed forward. At some point, Rappy then talks to Grave about the 7 dwarfs and about Snow White and stuff. And she mentions that she's never met Snow White, but wants to return the 7 dwarfs to her. But it's hard, as she doesn't want them to find out about Cinderella because they fought Cinderella at one point. At that juncture, Shifty interrupts because Behemoth is like on the move and she's nearby. So we all kind of like hide a little bit and see her climbing up a building with her clamps. And then we talk about trying to sneak by or maybe trying to shoot her, but Yunhua says that we're slightly out of range to hit her. Vesti is about to suggest something, but Emma shuts her down. And the Behemoth like looks over and seems to see us. And then she launches herself like a mile and a half. Like almost 2 miles, like 3 kilometers at the game mentions, in like an instant. Like she instantaneously like blasts all the way over to us, like Mach speed, knocks us back. Rappy goes to fight her, but loses like immediately. Then she kicks everyone out and brings in a bunch of crystals. She then starts talking to us about she wants even more conversation, because conversation is the key to evolution, and she loves her friends, they're 4 beasts, but they just talk about the same stuff all the time, so it can get kind of boring. So it's nice talking to us because we seem to like have stimulating conversation, and that helps her evolve or helps her become better or whatever. And then she's like, cool, I'll see you guys later. Bye, Z. And she grabs the coffin and leaves. So we reach out to Shifty, find out that everyone is alive but unconscious. And this place is not safe. So we pick up Rappy, despite Shifty being like, you're just a human, you can't pick up like 1,000-pound like cyborg woman. And we're like, we got this. And so we start taking her. And Shifty guides us to like this white glass building nearby where we'll be protected from the crystals and where they'll be protected and whatnot. And then Grave gets up and says that she's going to help and thanks us for helping her, even though she lost the coffin. Grave checks in on everyone. Yunhua is barely holding together because the crystals got her like real good, but like everyone else seems to be doing okay and fine. We tell Emma, well, we ordered Emma to take Yunhua back to the Harmony Cube for repairs. Yunhua's like, no, and we're like, that's an order, and she's like, okay, fine, because she's all about following them orders. Yunhua then asks Vesti to stick around and watch our backs and stuff, and so yes, and she promises Yunhua to blast Behemoth good. Anise then checks on Rappy, since she has never lost before, which, and then Rappy's like, I still haven't lost. The battle's not over yet. It's like, you go, girl. And she won't stop until Behemoth is on her back. We then chat about Cinderella with Grave. Tell us more about Cinderella. We find out that she's super powerful, which we know, because she must beat the Goddess Squad, like all of them. But when she wakes up, who knows what's going to happen with her, because she's been asleep for so long that she's probably going to be like a tabula rasa. So if like someone like Behemoth like wakes her up, then she might join their forces and become a heretic again. So it's like super important that Grave finds her first, so that she can imprint on her like her true self and whatnot. And then Anise is like, hold up, well, she makes a joke about like chicks, like imprinting on their mothers or whatever. And then she's like, wait, how powerful is this Cinderella actually? And then Grave, without hesitating, is like, she would destroy all of you. And they're like, oh, okay, thank you for the confidence. What about Behemoth? And it's like, well, in her current state, I don't know. But when she's in like her full state, no one can defeat her. She's the most powerful, like Nikke in all creation. Like when she's at her full power. Then Mana calls us. We find out that Emma and Yunhua have yet to get over to them, but that the Harmony Cube is starting to like really tap out its energy reserves. So we can only use like 3 more A pillars. And since, you know, this whole thing with they need to like repair the Harmony Cube to get it to like clear out the crystal sector. So for now, we're encouraged to use the Harmony Cubes or the A pillars like we did with Behemoth before as like a offensive tool. And then they can take care of it later, yeah. So meanwhile, while this is all going on and we're trying to track Behemoth down, she's like sitting around on the coffin looking at it and trying to figure out what to do. Then a second 4 beast, Leviathan, calls. She's like, what are you doing? Behemoth tells her. They get into like an argument. Apparently Behemoth gets like super bored really easily. So Leviathan's kind of like the brains of the operation. And it's like... And so we find out that the last time we were here, the reason we didn't run into Behemoth is because she'd wandered off to Eden and like wanted to say hi to them because the whole stimulating conversation thing. And then Leviathan's like, what are you doing? You can't just wander off. And she's like, I was bored. I just want to go see what they would do and like say hi. And so she did that. And then Levy mentions that, okay, well, just open the coffin. And then Behemoth's like, well, I don't know. If I open the coffin, they might kill Cinderella. I'm like, I don't know, or Anichiro. I don't know if I want to do that. And Levy's like, I don't care. We just need the body. And it's like, why do they need the body? So they argue some more about that. And then Levy's like, that's it. I'm coming over. And Behemoth's like, you're pretty far away. And she's like, whatever. I'll be there soon. And then Behemoth, after Levy hangs up, Behemoth starts talking to Anichiro a bit. And then she's like, all right, it's time for me to prepare for our visit to her. Back with us, we get to this like beautiful crystal pathway that leads up to this like crazy like flowered like crystallized flowered like location, and that is where Glass Slipper is. So Grave tells us about how Behemoth spent a lot of time crafting it. She kept like destroying things and moving crystals around and then retrying and doing stuff. Seemed like she was really bored, and that she's come over here several times, but at no point was Cinderella ready to be connected to Glass Slipper because she was still being repaired and stuff. So, you know, and then we're like, well, how were you able to get over here all the time? And it's like, well, Behemoth like tends to just like meander out of here all the time. And it's like, okay, so let's get up there. And then so at some point we're like, so what if Cinderella comes to and it isn't Cinderella? What if she's Anichiro again? And the Grave's like, I'll kill her because I know her only weakness. And you're like, oh, you want to tell us? And she's like, no. We then see Behemoth, and so she's like, hey guys, what's up? And so I love Behemoth, she's one of the best. And so let's see, we then throw a pillar at her, which she catches at her with her clamps, and then Vesta uses like a smoke screen attack and everyone runs past her, and she's like, you guys think you can get away from me? And then what she doesn't realize is that we didn't run. We just walk up to her and we slap like one of the pads onto her that's going to get the A pillar onto her, and she's like, what? And then we slam the A pillar, like slams right into her and starts covering her with like arc structures and stuff, which allows us to move forward to Glass Slipper. Once we get there, Rappy helps us and pauses to admire like our physique because I guess like our jacket got torn or something, and then Bessie's like, tee hee hee, Rappy, it's like you've never seen a man before. It's like, what is happening? Anyway, we finally get to the central flowering crystal structure, and the coffin's there, but there's no Glass Slipper. And then a crystal chamber-like thing like flies up into the sky, and it has attached the Glass Slippers to itself, so they're completely enveloped in this crystal chamber. So we have to destroy this thing first. And Grave gets like super offended by this and tells us that don't worry about. We just got to release the Glass Slippers. They can't be compromised. So once they're free, they'll be like good to go. Right? They're not corrupted or anything like that. She then grabs a coffin and takes it somewhere out of the way so that she can like work on getting Cinderella ready for revitalization or whatever. So we can't be compromised. We clear the crystals. Okay. Okay, so we defeat the crystal chamber, which this is one of the hardest bosses in the game, to be honest. Especially by the time you get here, for most people, it's gonna be like, oh my gosh, there's like so many little like stupid things you got to do in this boss battle. But we get the Glass Slippers away, and then we bring them over to the coffin so Grave can start working on them. And while she's working on that, Behemoth like has broken out of her like arc structure, and she's charging at us. And so all the rest of us are gonna like fight her off or block her from coming so that Grave can continue work on Cinderella. It does not go well. Grave gets knocked back away from the coffin almost immediately. We get stabbed in the gut, and then the rest of the girls like fall as we're like kind of passing out and stuff. But we're finally able to like pull ourselves together, and then Behemoth's like mocking us, like, "What are you gonna do?" Something. She then mocks us, and then she breaks the coffin open, but no one's inside. It's what? And a bit further away, Grave has the glass slippers and Cinderella and some of the crystals, and she's trying to activate her. Behemoth makes a move, but then we toss another pillar at her, and then she mocks us, and then she gets shot. And we find out that Yunhua and Emma, instead of going back to the Harmony Cube, they've been kind of like stalking us, and so they're able to slow her down for a little bit, and then we activate the pillar. Behemoth dodges back to get out of the way, but then Vesti runs up and grabs the pillar like mid-air and like slams it into Behemoth, and then she rushes into her close range and just unloads like her entire barrage. Grave is still struggling. Well, this is all going on. So Grave is still struggling with her stuff, and then we, after the kind of smoke clears, Behemoth tosses Vesti, who she's cut in half. Like both halves of her right at our feet. It's like, holy shit. And then she tosses a crystal, like a huge crystal at where Yunhua and Emma were shooting at her from, which stops the barrages. And then she goes up, knocks Grave out of the way, and breaks the crystal that Cinderella's in. Cinderella falls to the ground and then kind of wakes up, but she's like, "Who are you? Who am I?" And Behemoth's like, "I'm Behemoth, you're Enichiro, you're like my progenitor, my progenitor, and all this stuff." And she's like, "Yes, Enichiro, that is a name I recognize." And Grave starts freaking out, and she's about to give up and kill Cinderella, but we're like, "No, you can't do that, you can't give up." And we give her like a pep talk and tell her we're gonna do this, we're gonna like, friendship is magic, and like your friendship with her is gonna like carry you through, and like there's still a chance, so don't give up yet, and don't lose your dream, right? You're writing a new tale and all that crap. And then we cover our hand with our own blood because we have this hole in our side, and we punch Behemoth in the face. And as we're going to punch her, she's like giggling. She's like, "What are you gonna do? Punch me in the face?" And we do, and then it like messes her up real bad because of the Vapus. And so she starts like freaking out and like rolling around and stuff. And this gives Grave enough space to go in and get to Cinderella. And she's like, "No, you're not Enichiro, you're Cinderella." And she's like, "Cinderella?" And she's like, "You know me, I'm your friend, something. And she's like, "Let me see your face." So Grave finally takes off her helmet that she's had on this whole time, and Cinderella's like, "Yes, I do remember you. You're so beautiful," and all this stuff. And then Cinderella starts crying, and then she remembers everything, and they talk about being beautiful a lot. They talk like a lot. And then Cinderella goes from crying to mad, and then Grave's like, you have to remember our mission. Our mission is to reclaim the surface and save humanity and write our new story. And she's like, "Yes, I will do that." And then she gets up with like glass slippers and starts floating, and the Behemoth kind of like has recovered by this point, and they start going fucking at it. And at that point we pass out. A few hours later, we wake up, and we're in the infirmary back at the reclamation site. Cinderella is sitting nearby, checking herself in a mirror, which is what she does. She tells us that everyone is fine, and they're all here, and we go out to find Anise and Neon, and we get, like, the back brief. So Absolute is totally messed up. They're being transported here immediately. Like, Emma's doing okay, but Vesti was cut in half and needs immediate repairs, and then Yunhua is, like, barely holding it together with all the crystals and stuff, but they should be fine. Grave got pretty messed up, but Mana's going to fix her, and since she was based on, like, she was like a mass-produced model, that it shouldn't be too hard to fix her up. You know, they'll have like plenty of spare parts lying around and stuff. And then Rappy is just pissed and wants revenge. At that juncture, Cinderella steps up, and she's like, "Oh, we're like, oh, hey, you heard everything." She's like, "Yes, I am ready to join the team to reclaim the surface." And we're like, "Oh, that's awesome." And she's like, "Oh, but don't forget the one thing you promised." And we're like, "Promised?" And then Anise is like, "Yeah, we have to put full body mirrors every 100 yards throughout the entire reclamation site so that she can always check and make sure she's still beautiful." And we're like, "What?" And then Anise, and then Cinderella's like, "Yes, your compromise is acceptable." And we're like, "What compromise?" And it's originally she wanted full body mirrors every 50 yards. Elsewhere, Rappy is speaking to Emma and Yunhwa, and she finally apologizes to Yunhwa. She explains that what she wanted was to take up the mantle of Red Hood. So she joined the team because Red Hood was on a team, and they worked and getting closer and closer and closer. And then there was the incident where a human died, and all Rappy was mad about was having to do the paperwork. She didn't care about the human being at all. It was then that she felt like she had let herself and the team down, and that is why she left. And she was so embarrassed about the whole situation that she never said anything. So she apologizes, and then they finally depart on good terms. And after Rappy leaves, Yunhwa is like, it's time for tactical up. And Emma's surprised because she's like, tactical up? You told Ingrid that would never happen. And Yunhwa explains that she didn't feel like doing tactical up because if they tactical up, like, had like their tactical upgrade, then Rappy would never be able to return to them because she'd be so far behind them in terms of like equipment and stuff like that. And so now that Rappy is never going to come back, and it's like Yunhwa's finally able to like move forward with her life and make this happen. So because Rappy's moved on with her life, Yunhwa feels like it's time for them to move on with their lives as well. And that wraps it up. And so go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and join me next week for Old Tales, which is the whole backstory with Cinderella and Grave. So, yep, catch you later.